Pour nous parler de leur travail sur God of War Ascension, ce n'est pas un développeur des studios Sony Santa Monica qui a fait le déplacement sur Paris, mais deux. Mark Simon, lead designer, et Jason McDonald, designer spécialisé sur les combats. God of War Ascension, comme vous le savez sans doute si vous avez suivi un peu l'actualité du jeu, n'est pas la suite de God of War 3, mais une préquelle, soit une aventure se situant environ 10 ans avant God of War 1 et quelques mois après que Kratos est assassiné, dans un état second, sa femme et son enfant. Du coup, on peut se demander les raisons d'un tel choix. De nombreux fans auraient en effet sans doute préféré jouer à God of War 4.
Prequel brings a whole bunch of opportunities that if you would go to the end of the saga you would not have. So, first opportunity we get is we get to go back into a different time in Kratos' past. We get to explore some stuff that maybe you learned about but you didn't know. When Kratos was cursing the gods and he was on the boat in God of War 1, you were wondering why he was cursing the gods, what was causing those visions, why was he so tormented. And we're going to go back to a time to find out why he was, what caused that to happen. When you break an oath to a god, what does that do to you? Who do you have to deal with? What are the repercussions of doing something like that?
Cette décision offre également une porte d'entrée aux nouveaux joueurs qui peuvent débuter la série sans avoir la sensation de prendre un train en marche. Mais pour les fans, ayant fait tous les God of War sur PS3 et PSP, il a fallu que l'équipe s'assure à la fois de la cohérence scénaristique du jeu, mais aussi de la cohérence gameplay.
Some of the things that we did was we looked at the gameplay from the navigation side of view. So we added IK, we changed the way that Kratos climbs on walls. We wanted the way that he climbed on walls to be more of a human experience. So Kratos before when he climbed on the walls, he was stabbing everything. It was a very, very flat plane. And in God of War Ascension, we allowed him to get his hands and actually connect into cracks and spots that stuck out and be a little bit more like someone who would actually climb around on a wall. We also introduced, in terms of the combat mechanics, we introduced the world weapon system. And what that meant was that we were going to use a button on the controller. And by moving it to a button on the controller that had previously been used for some of the rip animations and some of the CS move animations, the finishing animations where they had the circle icon over their head, that meant that we needed to make the button scheme work for all the face buttons and make that your combos would change, so that if you picked up a sword and you do like a square, square, triangle, that's the classic move that you've done in all the God of War games. But then when you do square, square, circle, you do a different move with a sword. If you have a javelin, you do a different move with that. If you have a club, you do a different move with that. And that would allow the player to kind of customize his combat experience. He'd get into an arena and maybe he'd be fighting against some satyrs and the satyr would have a club. And he's got a shield on him, so he's been using the shield in kind of a defensive nature. So he'd discard the shield, really damage one of the creatures, then knock the sword out of one of the other creature's hands, use it, and now do different moves off of that circle button. And that's one of those things that is kind of a throwback to more of a human side of him, more of a soldier side to him.
Le système de combat de God of War Ascension a été quelque peu modifié pour intégrer des mécaniques inédites que va maintenant nous présenter Jason McDonald.
Kratos as a whole is much more fluid to control. He aims a lot better. He now tracks enemies above him and below him with his blade, so much easier to track. He can now grab guys from afar, making it much easier to do those brutal kills that he's known for. He also has a brand new rage system, which allows him to kind of build his anger throughout each fight and then use it to destroy his enemies even faster. And it's also a kind of a reward mechanism for the player, because if you play well, that rage meter will build faster. And it's something that players can kind of enjoy every single fight.
Mais l'une des nouveautés les plus attrayantes du jeu est sans conteste le nouveau grappling system qui modifie de façon assez drastique la dynamique des combats.
Kratos has a new mechanic this game, we call the tether grapple system. And using that, Kratos can extend his chain and grab onto many things. He can grab onto levers in the world. He can also grab onto enemies, use them as a ball and chain. And he can also just grab them from afar and allow them to close distance very fast. So in the past, Kratos, you would always have to kind of close in and get very close to his enemies when he needed to throw them. Now he can kind of do it from afar, he can do it from the air, he can do it at the characters in the air and he's on the ground, so it just allows him to zip around the environment a lot smoother, a lot better, faster than before.
Les QTE, eux aussi, ont fait l'objet d'une refonte totale. On notera que les développeurs n'aiment pas trop cette expression, lui préférant le terme de minigames.
Yeah, this game we have a new minigame mechanic. We call it the buttonless minigames. The purpose of these was to try to give a more cinematic type of minigame that the player has more direct control. The old type of minigames that had the button presses, we still have a lot of those because it's still very nice to look at, very kind of fun minigames. But we wanted to give one that kind of felt more like a fight with the creature. So now when Kratos goes into a buttonless minigame, The controls are intuitive. The attack buttons are the same, the evade is the same, and it's basically shown from a very cinematic perspective and getting the job done in the brutality that God of War is known for.
L'une des marques de fabrique de la série God of War est sans conteste sa dimension épique over the top, qui passe par des ennemis aux dimensions gargantuesques, mais aussi par un moteur graphique sans cesse amélioré.
The visual enhancements of God of War Ascension, I asked one of the artists before I left to come out here, I was like, what does it mean? What are some of the technical things that we changed in this game versus the last game? And I didn't know this because I'm a designer, so small brain about these sorts of things. But what he told me was that they'd been working in this entire game with a new rendering engine that I didn't even know. So Ben Diamond, one of our programmers, he took the rendering engine from God of War 3 and he recrafted, he rewrote it so that it would have higher textile density and it would have a much crisper image, and they also used a different lighting scheme. And I think you'll notice that some of the colors and some of the vibrancy comes out in God of War Ascension unlike any of the previous games. And those are a couple of examples of some of the technical things they did to visually enhance it. We always are improving our camera system, and the artists that we have are absolutely amazing at crafting worlds that you walk around in. They also have like I'm really bad with this, they have this like painting layered system where they can actually paint multiple layers across the geometry in the world, and it kind of seamlessly blends, which is incredible.
Les puzzles seront également plus présents dans ce nouveau volet, les développeurs ayant jugé que la série s'était un peu trop focalisée sur les combats. Et pour les étoffer, ils ont mis au point une nouvelle mécanique de jeu permettant à Kratos de manipuler le temps.
We call it the gem of Orobos. It's life cycle, we call it internally. And the idea is that the life cycle can decay or it can heal an object. And that allows the big thing that's good about it is that Kratos has the ability to stop things in midpoint, so it's kind of dramatic where you'll see maybe a wheel that's been broken and all of the spokes are lying on the ground if you play it all the way to its decayed state, but maybe you heal it and you get these spokes that kind of stick mid-air, and maybe Kratos can climb on those spokes, or maybe he can jump on top of them, and that allows us to do an incredible number of different things with our puzzles in the game.
Mais la grosse nouveauté de God of War Ascension, c'est bien entendu le multi, sur lequel l'équipe a travaillé très tôt dans le processus de développement.
And it all started from just an initial prototype, very quick prototype of just putting two Kratoses fighting each other. And we tweaked his combat a little bit, and already it was seeming kind of fun. You know, people got a lot of enjoyment killing each other, you know. People are sadistic.
It's the first opportunity that you've ever had as a fan of our game to create something in Kratos' world, and it's you. So you can craft your guy, you can choose what allegiance, which god you're going to align to and what abilities come with that, or you can choose what weapon you're going to wield, and you can challenge your friends, and you can compete to become the best champion. And I think that is, there's something to be said for being able to play with your friends in games. That's part of the fun. God of War, obviously, the single player is our bread and butter. We have not forgotten that at all. And we didn't forget that the entire time we were doing multiplayer, but multiplayer pushed us to do some things that we made our single player better, as well as made the multiplayer better while we were doing it. One of them is the world weapon system. Some of the power-ups that we have in the game are amazing, but also we did some things underneath the hood when we were making the multiplayer that made our game faster and more responsive.
L'impact du multijoueur aurait donc eu des répercussions positives sur la campagne solo. Pourtant, de nombreuses rumeurs semblaient indiquer que celle-ci serait plus courte que dans les épisodes précédents.
The solo campaign, I think, is a little bit more, I think it's longer than. And I think the solo campaign, when I try to explain it to people, the thing that's most exciting for me is the variety and locales that we take the player on. We really want to make sure that the player's going on an odyssey. We want you to feel like you're going from one end of the world to the other end of the world and feel like you've just covered everything in between. We want you to feel like there's that thing off in the distance, that place off in the distance that you can see, and you get a little bit closer to it every step of the way. And we want every step of the way to feel vastly different from the next step. And I think that we achieved that in God of War Ascension, one of the things for our team we're most proud of.
Nous jugerons bien entendu de la durée de vie de God of War Ascension dans notre critique diffusée dans le prochain Classé 18+. Mais pour avoir pris en main le jeu quelques heures, un passage en particulier nous a marqué, situé au début du jeu, celui où Kratos se voit enfermé dans une prison, qu'un monstre énorme arrache de son corps, secoue et retourne dans tous les sens. Ce passage est d'ailleurs présent dans la démo solo du jeu, téléchargeable sur le PSN depuis fin février. Nous conclurons donc ce reportage par quelques anecdotes sur le processus de création de ce moment particulièrement épique qui, pour le coup, devrait tout à fait répondre aux attentes des fans de God of War.
That sequence in God of War 3, we wanted to do something like that. We called it the Man-Witch. I don't know if you have that here, but basically the idea was there was a rotunda, and there was Zeus and Kratos and Gaia. And Gaia was going to grab the rotunda while Kratos and Zeus fought in there and was going to try to break it apart. And we made a tremendous amount of progress, but we realized that it was going to take us years to get the production quality that we expect out of ourselves. So we didn't put that in God of War 3. But that idea, we still had that idea, we still wanted to do that, and that was one of those things that not one person had as an idea. I think everybody who kind of worked on Hecaton, there were a giant group of people that worked on it. They made that happen all the way from the part where come to here and then it goes into Inception. And so Inception as the movie was part of the inspiration for it, and that was a better idea than fighting in a rotunda like this. And I think when you get your hands on it and you get to play it, it's a pretty amazing experience. Very, very fun.